our third SEREN5 training for stakeholders. The topic of today is the security appraisal procedure. This is a SEREN5 initiative. As you can imagine from the title of the training, I'm Flavia Lacolla from APRE, the Italian Agency for the Promotion of European Research, and the coordinator of SEREN5, the network of Cluster 3 national contact points. I would like to thank you, first of all, the RIA and DG Home colleagues that are today with us for the introduction of and the welcome of the session. Then I would like to thank my SEREN5 colleague and UK Cluster 3 National Contact Point, Zale Johnson, that will explain us the details and the key aspects of the security appraisal procedure. And just my final remark, I would like to remind you that you can use Slido for your questions. I'm going to put in the chat the link for Slido and the Slido code. So if you have some questions, you can use Slido. Now I would like to give the floor to, first of all, Doris Newman from RIA, and then to Maria Vittoria Abati from DG Home. Thank you again for your presence here today.
Yeah, so hello. I think, yeah, I'm unmuted. So hello, everybody. My name is Doris Neumann. As Flavia already said, I'm from the from the European Research Executive Agency area. I'm from the unit that is dealing with the Cluster 3 calls for secure societies. So we will our unit deals with the proposals that are due in November. And I guess this is why you are here. I think most of you are people that want to apply to those calls to write proposals. So thank you for your interest, for the participants, also to SEREN5 and Flavia for organizing this training, which we think is very important and very timely. Also to my DG Home colleagues for the continuous support for everything, the security scrutiny and the help for getting this training done. And most of all, Zale, for your great work in putting this together. If I had a medal to give for resilience, you would definitely get it. Because it's a complicated topic and you really delved into it, and it was really great to work with you. The security section for our proposals. So there's this separate section that you have to fill out because it's a security call. And I'm very pleased that there has been so many people that are interested, because this tells me that we are all concerned about national and European security, which is really a good thing. We also think that when you go through the security section, if you take that seriously, that can also help to write a better proposal, because you will think about implementation and impact differently. So participating in the training and then applying it will certainly help you to get a better proposal. So without further ado, I give it back to Flavia and colleagues, and thank you for being here.
Thank you very much, Doris. Yes, now I would like to give the floor to Maria Vittoria Abati from DG Home.
Hello and welcome everybody to this training. I'm very happy to be here. Thank you, Zale, for the organization of this training. It's really important, and thank you, Flavia, SEREN5, for organizing it. My name is Maria Vittoria Abati. I am from DG Home, and specifically I am here because I work in Unit F2 on security and innovation, and more specifically because we work in the team of security appraisal. So overall, we are part of the process. We are part of the people that will analyze your proposals when they get to us to screening or scrutiny, if they're flagged or non-flagged. So I'm very happy to be here and to attend this training. As Doris underlined, it's very good that there is so many participants. It's very important, so you get an understanding of this process and how it works. We totally understand that sometimes could be hard to understand some part of it. It's complex and it can be scary, but don't get scared. We can all help you to understand better. I'm sure that after today, you will be able to grasp it better. And if you have any questions, I'm sure we can answer them. It's very important to fulfill very well these documents during your application, indeed, as mentioned by Doris, because then you will be more successful in the application procedure. And most of all, you will help us understand what are the security issues you identified in your project, if there are any mitigation measures needed, and how we can help you also throughout the security scrutiny procedure. So enjoy this training. I hope it will be helpful for you and it will be successful in your proposals. And I give back the floor.
Thank you very much, Maria Vittoria. Before passing the floor to Zeil, I would like to remind you again that if you have some questions, you can use a Slido. I will paste the code again in the chat for people joining now the session. And now, Zeil, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. I'm now going to try and share my slides with you. And hopefully that will work seamlessly. And please do let me know if you can see that.
Yes, we can. Not in presentation mode, but I'm seeing. Okay, now, yes, it's perfect. Thank you, Zeil.
Thank you. And thank you very much for the introduction. Good afternoon, and thank you for joining me today and my colleagues for this SEREN5 training event on security appraisal process. My name is Zeil Johnson, and I'm the UK's national contact point for the Civil Security for Society work programme. I'm also a partner in the SEREN5 project, tasked with training and educating stakeholders. Hence, this is why I'm here today, providing that training for you. Over the past few months, as the lead for stakeholder training, I've been working on this presentation with a lovely lady called Doris. You've already met her, who is the Senior Project Officer within the Research Executive Agency at the Commission. And I would also like to thank Doris for her guidance and assistance on this. This has been an absolute team effort because it is a complex process. And I've been working in this area for many years, and even I found that complicated and complex. So I would also like to take this opportunity to thank DG Home for their invaluable support to this work, and thank you very much for endorsing this. Okay, so the reason for this training is that Doris carried out a piece of research that identified mistakes were being made by applicants to Horizon Europe when it came to the security appraisal process. These mistakes included, for example, applicants assigning a security classification to the deliverables of their project when in fact there was no need to do so. However, once the applicant had raised the security issue within their project, it could not be retracted. And this led to the project being delayed and in some cases not even going ahead. So Doris believes that a number of errors made by stakeholders participating in Horizon Europe could be greatly reduced through a better understanding of the security appraisal process. And so this presentation is about enhancing your awareness. Just to let you know that this presentation is being recorded and will be made available on the SEREN5 website after this event. So let's get started. This slide is simply a content slide. It's so you can see what is included for quick access to the information after the event. So you can see, you can go directly to the slide number if you want specific information on a specific area. So, what is the overall intention or the aim of the security appraisal process? The security appraisal process exists to protect the common interest and the integrity of all parties involved in Horizon Europe projects, including the European Commission and Horizon Europe applicants. The process facilitates the mitigation for the misuse of European Union classified information, also known as UCI, and sensitive information, also known as SEN, that is used and produced by Horizon Europe research projects. You will see the words and the acronym UCI and SEN quite a lot throughout this presentation. So try and get into your mind that UCI is European Union classified information and SEN is sensitive information. They are two different things, and we're going to go into that a bit later on. So what does all of these aims mean exactly? And what are the specific objectives that ensures that the aim of the security appraisal process is completely fulfilled? Let's take a look at these objectives, which are actually in no particular order. So, firstly, one of the goals of the process is to reduce the risk of project information being misused. This is a critical factor as it ensures that information doesn't end up in the wrong hands and used by criminals to commit crime. Another goal of the process is to identify vulnerabilities within projects and to do so as early as possible so that the research is protected when and where relevant. For example, when information needs protecting from public consumption. Furthermore, the security appraisal process works towards the protection of critical interests of Europe and its member states against unauthorised disclosure of information. This in turn protects all those participating in projects. Another objective is to ensure that the project and its partners adhere to the specific rules that protects EU classified information, UC, remember those, within project work. The final objective here is for the Commission to have a process that gives them the power to make recommendations to a project. This may be because the project has not gone far enough to protect the information, or there needs to be additional requirements to protect the information related in a project. So overall, the objectives are about assessing potential issues related to protecting project information and then making sure that any issues are addressed appropriately. Now, before I go to the next slide, I am issuing you a warning. I'm going to tell you about the legislation behind the security appraisal process. The legislation is really important, and it would be amiss of me to not include it in the presentation, although I will admit it's not the most stimulating of information. However, I have made the slide really colourful and interesting for you, so please do bear with me. So, the security appraisal process has its foundations within legislation and requires, and this is from Article 20 of the regulation of the European Parliament and the Council of the 28th of April 2021. Article 20 relates purely to security, especially in the relation to the protection of classified information against unauthorised disclosure, including compliance with any relevant union and national law. So I have extracted some of the rules for you, and these are shown in the slide, and I will go through them now. So research undertaken outside the union using or generating classified information must have a security agreement between the union and the country in which the research is to be conducted. There is also a requirement for proposals to include a security self-assessment, which you will find within the proposal template and known as the security issues table. Again, it's something we'll go through later on. Also within Article 20, there is a requirement that the process provides the Commission with opportunities to raise issues relating to security. There is a requirement from those participating in Horizon Europe to protect information against unauthorised disclosure, whether that be information that is used in a project or whether it is generated by a project. So these are another couple of words I want you to remember. Documents that are used within a project and documents that are generated by a project. So what I'm trying to emphasize here is that the security appraisal process is not just a requirement. It is in fact a legal requirement. So I'm hoping that the birds gave you a little bit of serenity here, and we can move on from the legislation. So let's move on to the security appraisal process itself and understand how this impacts on some of those participating in Horizon Europe. The provisions for protecting UC and SEN, the two different things we're going to be talking about, begins in a work programme. I'm going to apologise if everyone knows here what a work programme is, but I'm going to tell you what a work programme is for those people who are new. A work programme is a document that lists all funding opportunities for research and innovation activities in a given area of Horizon Europe. So, for example, there are individual work programmes for each cluster, like Cluster 3 on security and Cluster 1 on health. Each work programme contains the details for calls, for proposals and topics. You can find the work programmes on the Funding and Tenders portal, and the links to that are at the end of this presentation. So let's get on with the show. In certain work programmes, some call topics are called flagged and as security sensitive, and these are indicated within the specific conditions. And there's an absolute, within that table, there is a piece of text which provides information that this is a flagged topic. So this, remember, another two words, flagged for security sensitive and not flagged. So if it's a flagged security sensitive topic, you will actually see this wording. Some activities resulting from this topic may involve using classified background or producing of security sensitive results, UC and SEN. Please refer to the related provisions in Section B, EU classified and sensitive information of the general annexes. And you can find these this extra information in the general annexes here, and there's a link here. So if you do not see this statement within the criteria, then this is not flagged as security sensitive. So I know I'm asking you to remember quite a lot. There's UC and SEN, flagged, non-flagged, used within projects and evolving from projects. So, and I will go into this more in the later on in the presentation. And there's the link to the annex. Okay. So I've already talked about the security appraisal process being in existence to protect UC and SEN and the importance of identifying risks early on. For example, when you are planning out your project or when you are writing your proposal, that's what we mean when we say early. So on this slide, I've listed some questions you could ask yourself about your project at the very start so that you can identify potential security risks. These questions could be, could my project activities be harmful to people, animals, or the environment? Could my project cause a direct negative impact on the security of individuals, groups, or states? Could my project be used to harm critical interests of the EU and its member states? Could it be misused by criminals and/or terrorists? Could it serve any other purpose than that it is intended to do? And could it result in the development of CBRN weapons or any method for their delivery? So in reality, it's about being mindful of how your project activities or deliverables may be used to cause harm. This is about identifying the risks, which is an integral part of any project, in fact. So why should you care about the risks? So let's take a look at some of the benefits of identifying potential security risks at the very start. So some of the benefits include it helps you to understand what could go wrong and how to prevent it. So therefore it facilitates better decision making during your project. It helps to stay on schedule. So if you don't identify the risks early on and then something crops up later on, that could actually push your project back a little way. So by actually understanding the benefits, there's no late surprises. It can help minimize negative impact and maximize positive impact. Oh, I'm so sorry. And it will contribute to an improved impact plan. It also helps you to realize your project's goals, scope and purposes. And it demonstrates a well thought out implementation plan. And it will also help to deliver the expected results and benefits and achieve the project what it's set out to do. So identifying these security risks early isn't just about following the legislation. It has massive knock-on effects to your proposal being just as you want it to be. So the four main areas is to identify the risks, assess the risks, plan out what you're going to do with those risks, manage the risks, and produce a better quality proposal. So now I'm going to take you through the different levels of UC, EU classified information. Also, and these different levels have a degree of negative impact if unauthorized disclosure of the information occurred within the project. However, it must be kept in mind that even the lowest negative impact is not acceptable, and in some cases, information will need protecting against unauthorized disclosure. The level of impact is measured against the extent of harm that it can cause on the critical interests of the EU or more of its member states. So if we look at this, the different levels, I've highlighted some of the really important words here. So for EU restricted, that's the first level, unauthorized disclosure of this type of information could disadvantage the critical interests of the EU or one or more of its member states. This is the lowest severity of negative impact. If we look at EU confidential, this is about information that could cause harm. So it's stepped up a little bit of the critical interests of the EU or one of its member states. EU secret is about how unauthorized disclosure of classified information could seriously harm the critical interests of the EU or one or more of its member states. So as you can see, it goes from the lowest impact to the highest impact. And it's really important to understand what the impact could be if unauthorized disclosure of EU classified information was to happen during your project. However, just to affirm this, top secret, EU top secret is not funded, because it's deemed to be far too impactful, negatively impactful, as this would be exceptionally grave circumstances if that information was to get out into the public domain. So these are the four levels of classification of UC. I've not mentioned sensitive. This is about EUCI. And therefore, if your project is going to use... Sorry.
Excuse me, Sale. I think you don't share the slides anymore.
Oh, okay.
There was a glitch.
Oh, is there? Sorry, I'll try and go back. Have we lost it? How far have we lost?
The last slide was the one with the 4 levels of UC.
Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you very much. Can you see it now?
Yes.
I beg your pardon. So you can see my slide now?
Yes, Sale.
Brilliant, thank you very much. Thank you, Doris. So, yeah, if that happens again, please do give me a shout. So you have to understand the impact of unauthorized disclosure of UC information. So let's move on to the specific rules that actually should be followed to protect UC. And there are some rules for protecting UC, and especially when you're generating UC accessing UC and handling UC. And this slide is about what you have to put in place if you are using UC and you are producing UC in a project, what you will have to put in place with regards to the premises that you're working on and the people that you will be working with. Now, this is about confidential or above. So if I'm showing you that for generating and accessing confidential or above, you need to have premises that which have been granted a facility security clearance, an FSC, issued by the competent National Security Authority, and that's for generating and accessing. And when you're handling it, only premises that have a secured area accredited by the competent National Security Authority. Person requirements for confidential and above is granted only to individuals with a valid personnel security clearance, a PSC, and an established need to know who have been briefed on the applicable security rules. So these are for confidential and above, and this is for UC. There is another set of rules which is about restricted, EU restricted, but it's only required by national rules. And these are the countries that require them. So what I would want you to do is, when you're deciding what you need to do to protect that, is refer to this and also refer to the document which will be at the end of this these slides. So I'm not going to go into that, so you can use these, but please be aware there are specific rules to protect UC and help you protect UC within your project, and be mindful that this relates to premises and people when generating, accessing and handling. So I've talked a lot about UC, so now let's move on to sensitive information and what is meant by the terminology of sensitive information. If a project uses or generates information that should not be made public, it should be identified and handled as sensitive. And this is security sensitive information. So what can security sensitive information be? It can be that within your project, you're actually carrying out an activity that identifies gaps and vulnerabilities in existing systems or critical infrastructures. Systems, this could be within policing, it could be within, major services like electricity or power. You could also do a piece of activity that identifies design flaws. I mean, right, this is what projects are about. You're trying to identify gaps so that you can find ways of ensuring that these gaps are filled and that you're making, through your project, civilians more safe and secure, and also infrastructures. So you could mention about the characteristics and requirements of devices used in detection. This could be a security issue. You could also look into the measures to counter terrorism, and also tools and methodologies for predicting and detecting organised crime. So these are the sorts of things that we class as sensitive. And what will happen is, if there are security sensitive information, there will be security recommendations, which may include if you're producing something, you may even classify that piece of information. You may make that sensitive information into UC, EU classified. You could also limit its dissemination. And you could establish in a security advisory board an appointment of a project security officer. You can limit the level of detail, and you can use instead of using real life scenarios, you use fake scenarios. So the most common security recommendations here are usually restricted to disclosure or limiting the dissemination, which leads to the creation of deliverables, which are sensitive information with security recommendations. So what I'm saying to you here is that now I've actually told you about UC, I've told you about sensitive, and you understand the difference between the two. However, to understand the differences, I've produced this slide. So it's what is sensitive information? It's information that is used or generated by a project that does not require a classification originally to be assigned for it, but it can be assigned. So it's that information that you're producing that you may only need to tell certain people. What is UC? Information that is used within a project that has a pre-existing classification assigned to it, which is called background information, and or information that can be generated by a project that requires to be assigned a classification, and that's foreground information. I'm going to talk about those in a minute. So SEN requires a limitation on its dissemination against unwanted disclosure, and UC requires protection against unauthorized disclosure. An example of a sensitive information, a project research activity that identifies gaps in security, as I've already mentioned, such as limitations and flaws in a technology or methodology that may be used by policing. An UC example is a government document that provides details, plans, technologies and intelligence for the security and defence of a country and its people. Then we look at the failure to protect SEN, so potential for criminals to use the information to enhance their criminal activities. Failure to protect UC can cause varying degrees of prejudice, which we've already gone through, to the interests of the European Union and or one more of its member states. And this has legal implications as well on a project. So how to protect SEN? Those external to the project consortium and the granting authority should not have access to sensitive deliverables, e.g. security recommendations, unless pre-identified. So you can actually say at the beginning of your project, I'm going to probably produce something that's quite sensitive here. And I want a certain police force to have that information, or the consortium members within your project. So what's the point of producing it if you can't share it? But you have to say who you want to share it with. And also outside of the consortium, you could be sharing that with Europol, because they will need to know, what have you found out here? So how to protect UC? Understanding classification levels and following the specific rules covered in this presentation. So it's about understanding the levels of classification and following the specific rules. So as you can see, there are differences between sensitive information and UC, and you can use this slide as an aid memoir after the event. So now we're going to go on to the security issues table. And this is something, in essence, it's a self-assessment questionnaire, and it's where the protection of information within projects begin. And you'll find the security issues table in part A of the proposal template, and in the completion of the table is mandatory for all applicants. And that's for flagged and non-flagged. The table requires you to tick the yes or no box for each of the questions. If you tick the yes box for any of the questions, then you will need to provide a page number within the proposal document that offers more detail of the information around the specific issues that you've already raised by saying yes. This will enable the Commission to assess the issues and aid with the mitigation of the highlighted issues and help protect the information. For topics not flagged as security sensitive, then the security issues table may be the only part of the security requirement that you will ever do, and I'll cover that later on in this presentation. So the security issues table comprises of 3 parts. There's part 1, EU classified information, part 2, misuse, potential misuse of results, and part 3, other security issues. So no, topics that are flagged as security sensitive, e.g. security, digital and space, applicants must complete the security section as well as part of their proposal submission. Again, I'm going to go into that. I didn't want you to think that this was the only thing that you would have to do. So as part of your proposal, if it's a flagged security sensitive topic, you have an additional job to do, and that's the security section, and we're going to go into that. So let's move on to the next bit. So EU classified information UC. So what is classified background information? So classified background information is that which may be used. It's information that may be used within a project itself, e.g. documents and materials that already exist and have already got a classification by an EU institute, an EU member state, or a non-EU country or international or background, that which you will use to help you do your project work. So what is classified foreground information? That's information that is generated by the project, and it still needs to be protected. And this sort of information are often the deliverables of the project. So let's look at the next slide. Again, this is a piece of information you need to be mindful of. If UC is going to be accessed by a project, participants from non-EU countries, then this can only occur if there is a security of information agreement in place between the EU and the non-EU country. So if you're using UC, and you've got non-EU countries within your project, then you have to be mindful that there has to be an information agreement in place. And you can find the list of agreements for non-EU countries in this document. I put that there, that link. And let's move on now to misuse. So what is misuse? You must consider if any of your project activities has the potential to generate results. Materials, these are materials, methods, technologies, and or knowledge that could be maliciously misused by others. With such malicious misuse causing the reduction of the security of individuals, groups, and or states. If you think that this may occur, then you must protect that information and, where appropriate, assign an EU classification. And you can find out more about this within this document here, and I've put in a link so that you can go directly to that information. Other security issues. Let's have a look-see. In this section, you must indicate whether or not your project will raise new security issues or concerns that are not covered by previous sections within this table, such as national security restrictions. If you have identified security issues, you must say what those issues are and how they will be addressed. And by identifying the security issues early and providing details in this section, you will avoid future problems. I think I've already mentioned that previously. For example, if the issues were discovered later in the project, perhaps during the project review or the project audit, then this could be a major impact on the timeline of your project. This area is not for issues relating to ethics or data protection, because there's separate tables for these. So what constitutes a new security issue? Well, it could be a laser, for example, that can take out a satellite from Earth. I know this is very James Bond-ish, but this is what we're trying to say to you. There's no telling what new security issue you could actually uncover within your project or what you want to uncover. Thank you, Doris, for the James Bond scenario. Because I asked the same question. what is a new security issue, because I wasn't really sure. So topics that are flagged as security sensitive, these are security, digital and space. Usually applicants must complete the security section as part of the proposal submission. So you've already done the security issues table. These are for security flagged, security sensitive flagged topics. And so you must also complete the security section. And I've put a reminder here that this is what you will see if it's a security flagged project. So where do you get that security section? So once you begin the submission of your project proposal, you will be directed to the funding submission service, just here. Then you click on download part B of templates, and then you will gain the access to the security section from the downloaded templates here. So that's where you will find the security issues section. Okay. So once you get there, what will you actually find in the security section? And this slide goes through some of the things that you will find. So first of all, you'll find a part where you provide a summary of the project security issues. You will also find a table with sensitive information with security recommendations. You will see the security aspects letter, also known as SAL. There is tables for the security classification guide. There are also tables with regards to security staff, and that's about the project security officer that may need to be appointed and a security advisory board that you may need to put into place. So what I'm going to do now is going to go through each of those things for you that that you will see there. So before I move on, for the summary part of the security section, you must provide some text to say why your project is security sensitive. So let's start by looking at the sensitive information with security recommendations. This is one of the tables that you will find within the security section. This table should be completed if your project involves sensitive information. This is not a table for UC. And it will be required, especially if you need to put a limitation on the dissemination of that information. Sensitive information is where the project includes a deliverable in which a recommendation has been made in relation to security, such as research that highlights, again, flaws or gaps in security processes, methodologies, or technologies. So, for example, if it includes a gap analysis, which I've already mentioned, which identifies gaps in relation to detection in firearms, in containers, then you will have to limit who you share that information with. If you know in advance who should receive this sensitive information, which I've mentioned, then this should be mentioned in the table. And why they need to know that information. So, for example, you've got a number of end users, police forces, and you're consulting with them and you're working with them within your project, and they help you to understand what the gaps are. You will then want to give them the outcome of that analysis. And so if you name those police forces as within your project, or those people within your project that you want to share that information with, you have to put that within this table. What you shouldn't be doing is allowing sensitive information to fall into the hands of criminals. For your information, this table can be modified throughout the duration of the project, but only with the consent of the granting authority. So this is about sensitive information. It's about identifying what sensitive information will be. It'll be about what you say, what the deliverable number is, who will be the lead participant, the date of its production, and who has authorized access. And we have some examples of this later on in the presentation. Another set of tables to be completed is the security classification tables. And there's a separate table for each of the foreground and for the background information. So again, background information is you need to tell the experts, the security experts, what classified information you will be using within the project, and also you can also tell them what you may be planning to produce that may be sensitive. So this is where you fill these tables in. So this is for EU classified information. And again, in the comments part, you have to put the reason for the access to the classified deliverables and its planned use for the reader only. So the security classification guide tables must be part of Annex 1 in the description of actions of your grant agreement. Entities not listed in the access part of these tables will not have access to the classified information. So even if they are from the project consortium, so be sure to mention who you want to share that information with. And don't forget that you must obtain in advance formal written authorization by the originator of background information and where it was created and where it was classified, because the granting authority may need to see that letter at some point during the grant agreement or during the project. So another area is the security aspects letter. And this needs to be completed if your project intends to use or produce EU classified information, for example, background and or foreground. You will be requested during grant preparation to add security aspects letter alongside the security classification guide and put that onto Annex 1 of your grant agreement. Some of the items that you need to include in the security aspects letter is the information on those non-EU countries that you would be working with within your project. You may have already mentioned these in the security issues table. You need to have a list of all the classified elements to be used within the project and their applicable classification levels. That's background information, and a list of classified information to be generated by the project and what classified levels they will incur foreground information. You also need to mention which beneficiaries will need to obtain a facility security clearance where relevant, and which beneficiaries will need to obtain a personal security clearance where relevant. And these were covered earlier on in the presentation. So these are the final set of tables you will find in the security section. And these are about the staff requirements that you may require. And these are called security staff tables, which include the project security officer table and the security advisory board table. In relation to the project security officer, if your project involves classified background or foreground information, you must appoint a project security officer. One PSO per project is sufficient, and you will need to have a CV for that person to ensure that they know how to handle EU classified information. And the PSO must have the appropriate security clearances. In relation to the Security Advisory Board, a SAB is needed if your project involves sensitive deliverables with security recommendation or classification of background or foreground information. The SAB must have at least 3 members and consist of end users who have knowledge of security issues. The role of the SAB, the Security Advisory Board, is to review the project deliverables for security issues. Now, to conclude this part of the presentation, I'd like to point out that this is the security section where most errors are being made. Additionally, the security section is the first thing that the security experts will look at. as they will need to know exactly what security risks there may be within your project and what mitigating elements you may have to put in place to eliminate the risks. So remember, a well filled out security section shows that you've really thought about the things that are important. If there are no security risks, please say why you think this is, and put it within, and put that comment within the summary, and also even go to the point of putting not applicable within the tables. So now I'm going to take you through a process for applicants that have submitted a proposal for non-flagged security sensitive topics. Now, this process will only be for those projects that have been offered funding. It's not for every single project. So to clarify, just let you know, there's big white letters on a red background, only for those projects offered funding. So first of all, you will fill out, this is for non-flagged, you will complete the security issues table in part A of the proposal. It's mandatory for all applicants. And then for non-flagged topics, there are 3 possible outcomes. So the first outcome is the applicant has responded no to all the questions in the security issues table, and the granting authority has not detected any security issues. That's the end of the security appraisal process for those projects. However, there is a scenario where the applicant has responded yes to at least one of the questions in the security issues table. And if this occurs, the proposal will then enter the screening stage of the security appraisal process. Another possible outcome is that the applicant has responded no to all these questions in the table, but the granting authority has detected a security issue. Again, that proposal will enter the screening stage of the security appraisal process. So let's go to the screening part. So the proposal enters the screening stage of the security appraisal process. A qualified EU Commission staff will assess the results of the pre-screening, and there are 2 possible outcomes. Remember, these for non-flagged security sensitive topics. There are no issues identified. If there are no issues identified, that again is the end of the security appraisal process. If security issues are identified, then mitigating measures need to be put into place. And the proposal goes to security scrutiny undertaken by security experts. And they will look at the issues and they will identify some of the outcomes that will need to be put into place. And they will recommend what needs to be put into place to make sure that the information within your project is protected. So that was for non-flagged. For those people that are applying under a COTAP that is flagged security sensitive topics, there's a slightly different flow here. So again, you complete the security issues table, mandatory for all applicants, and you complete the security section at proposal stage. And there are all the things, as if it's relevant, if there is something there that you need to highlight. So it's different for flagged and non-flagged. Non-flagged do not need to do this, but flagged do need to complete the security section. And the security sensitive topics will go directly to security scrutiny, as we've already mentioned, undertaken by security experts. And they will produce a report outlining the recommendations of the security outcomes. Again, this process is only for those projects offered funding. So let's recap on the pathway to security scrutiny. So we're looking at the what projects go to security scrutiny, how do projects get there, why do projects need security scrutiny, who carries out the security scrutiny, and when does it occur? So security scrutiny will only be undertaken on proposals that have been offered funding and fulfil 2 criteria. So criteria is 1 is proposals submitted under a topic flagged as security sensitive will go directly to security scrutiny, and proposals submitted under a topic not flagged as security sensitive, but where an issue has been identified through the self-assessment, pre-screening and or screening, and where the project information, UC or SEN, needs protecting. So why do they need a security scrutiny? And it's to address and mitigate potential misuse of a project's information, such as that which could be channeled into crime or terrorism or be harmful to critical interest of the EU or one of its member states. And you realise that we've talked all about this previously, so this is a recap. So the security scrutiny is carried out by national security experts appointed by the relevant programme committee and chaired by the European Commission. And it will be undertaken prior to signature of the grant agreement. So this is the flow for both flagged and non-flagged topics. So what are the actual outcomes of the security scrutiny? Okay, so there's a number of possible outcomes that will influence the requirements or the recommendations. So once the security scrutiny has been completed, you'll get a security summary report produced, and it will offer what recommendations need to be taken on. The report will be provided to the applicant at the grant preparation stage, so to implement any required recommendations. And the recommendations must be set out in the grant agreement security section, a part B of the description of actions. Any security requirements must be fulfilled by the beneficiaries before signature of the grant agreement. So here's some of the security concerns. There are perhaps no security concerns. We've already said that there may be none, they may be looked at and then deemed there's no concerns. So there will be no need for the grant agreement to include a security section. However, for some of the security recommendations may be limiting the dissemination level of specific deliverables. There may be a classification requirement of those deliverables, restricted, confidential, secret. They may even recommend that you appoint a project security officer where classified background and foreground information is being used and produced. And there may be a requirement for establishing a security advisory board. All of those things we've been through. So just to give you a little bit more information about this, it's about, you know, projects can include both UC and SEN documentation and deliverables. Projects can have different levels of UC and SEN in one project. Where possible, you should aim to produce deliverables and documents that can be shared publicly. So you try and ensure that your project is being disseminated to as many as possible and where possible. And you should aim to have the lowest necessary levels of security sensitive deliverables and documents. And you have to ensure that the levels of security for sensitive deliverables and documents are correct from the very start, as you possibly can. And the Horizon Europe ethos for project deliverables and documentation is public as possible and restricted as needed. I love that. I think that's great. So practically, how does this work in everyday situation on projects? So we're going to go through 3 working examples of UC and SEN in Horizon Europe projects. So example 1 is a project that aims to protect electric power plants from drone attacks. Example 2 is a project that aims to improve law enforcement capabilities to reduce illegal firearms trafficking. And we're going to look at example 3 about a project that develops a new X-ray detector used for cargo control. So let's look at the first example. The project activities include a vulnerability analysis and gap analysis on critical infrastructure carried out in consultation with critical infrastructure operators. A deliverable of the project is a report on the resulting gap vulnerability analysis, not open to the public, and as such is classified as EU restricted. A prototype for a new technology is then built that has the capacity to neutralize drones on critical infrastructure premises. The prototype is piloted and this is communicated and disseminated to the public. However, no details of the specifications of the prototype is divulged. Another deliverable is a report on the specifications of the technology and is then classed as sensitive, as it may be used by criminals. And the deliverable report will only be disseminated to the granting authority and pre-identified critical infrastructure operators. So what will be the requirements here? So the requirements are for this project is there will be a need for the security issues table. It's mandatory for all applicants. There will be a table on the sensitive information with security recommendations because the project is producing a report on vulnerabilities and gaps. There is classified foreground information because the project is producing a document that needs to be protected against unauthorized disclosure and classified as such. And because the project involves classified foreground information, you will need to fill in the table for a project security officer and a security advisory board table. And you will also need to have the security aspects letter because the project is producing classified information. So it's good to identify right at the beginning, and you know what you're trying to do with your proposal. And if you're thinking out your proposal really well, you will be able to identify what you need to complete, which tables you need to complete at a very early age. And this will help you early stage, and this will help you plan your project out better. So, and here are some examples. So sensitive information with security recommendations. You put the name and the number of the deliverable and the description. You put the name of the lead participant. You say what date it will be produced. So it's month 34 of a 3-year project. And you name the entities authorized for access. Remember, if you don't name them, they can't have the access. And there's the security classification guide. This is about foreground information. You are delivering, it's a deliverable, it's a gap and vulnerability analysis from critical infrastructure operators. You're going to classify it at level EU restricted. You name all the beneficiaries involved here. And then you say what their responsibilities are. You say the data production and comments further along. So I hope that gives you an idea of some of the things that you need to be doing and thinking about, and all those risks you need to be identify the security risks. Let's look at the next example. It's a project that aims to improve law enforcement capabilities to reduce illegal firearms trafficking. So the project activities include a law enforcement end user gap analysis workshop. The project identifies that information from the workshop will only be given to pre-identified group, e.g. law enforcement agencies. The workshop is attended by operational police officers from across Europe that deal with firearms trafficking. During the workshop, the police officers provide information on their challenges and gaps when dealing with the firearms smuggling crime. A report of the findings of the workshop is a deliverable of the project. And then the report is classed as sensitive, as disclosure of operational challenges and gaps may be used by criminals. The report is only disseminated to the established predefined need-to-know law enforcement agencies and the granting authority. So what do we need here? It's a little less. The requirements are the security issues table and the sensitive information with security recommendations table. The reason being the security issues is mandatory for all applicants. And for the security information with security recommendations table is because you're producing a document that informs on capability gaps. And the third and final example The project activities include development of an X-ray device for detecting weapons on cargo ships or freighters. The EU classified information is referred to with regards to previous devices, so you're actually using EU classified information, background information. The detector is smaller that you're producing. The detector is smaller and lighter and outperforms any previous devices. During the development of the device, a draft document deliverable is produced on the operational processes of how weapons are detected on ships in specific EU countries. This deliverable should be classed as EU restricted, at least. At the end of the project, a deliverable is submitted which details the technical aspects and design of the device which is ready for market. The deliverable is classified as EU confidential. Again, what will you need to cover here and what mitigating circumstances and plan do you need to put in place? So again, the security issues table, mandatory for all applicants, the use of classified background and foreground information, because you're using a document that's already classified. It talks about previous X-ray devices, and you're also producing a document that should be classified, how weapons are detected on ships. So you need a project security officer table completing and a security advisory board table completing and a security aspects letter. So I'm hoping that has given you an idea of what you really should be doing when you come to your project. So let's look at previous errors of project proposals. I think this is really important to understand. I mean, to understand how you can mitigate if you understand the errors that are being made. So, for example, there has been a lack of awareness of security requirements. You know, applicants weren't referring to all the relevant documentation, you know, prior to the completion of the security issues table. There's a lack of clarification when describing the security issues within a proposal. So they were actually saying some things were confidential. And when the security experts saw that, they thought it was linked to EUCI, even though this was not the case, because the applicants were classifying their project management plan as confidential and their project dissemination plan as confidential. These should not be confidential and are not confidential. However, once you say that they are, the security experts need to look at that. And this may slow down your application or even slow down your project. There has also been a lack of understanding regarding the different classification levels. They didn't, applicants didn't understand the differences, the different impact that UC and non-UC had, and incorrectly assigning UC. They were assigning UC to demonstrators and prototypes. This can only really be for documentation. And not understanding the difference between UC and SEN, and not understanding that these are two different things. And I'm hoping that you know that now. So how do you avoid those errors? How do you take measures so that you can get it right from the very beginning? It's very simple. Read all the relevant documentation and read the FAQs on the Funding and Tenders portal. If you do have UC or SEN information deliverables in your project, demonstrate to the Commission that you are in control and able to manage UC and SEN or SEN. Provide details within your project proposal of the mitigating measures you will put into place to keep the information protected. This is this assess, plan and assess. And, this is not just about protecting information. It's about making your project much better. Be aware that the higher the TRL of a project, the more likely UC and SEN will feature in your project. If you're still unclear about UC and SEN, contact your NCP in the first instance, and you can also contact the Research Inquiry Service on the Funding and Tenders portal. Remember, errors may cause delays to your project or even stop your project from going ahead, and that would be a waste. Also note that the security appraisal process is not a re-evaluation of the technical side of your project proposal, and any text within a proposal that forms part of the security appraisal process will not contribute to the page numbers or the word count. So there's a lot of legal documents and things that support all of this, and I've put all of the links here. And I'm giving you a round of applause because this has been a very long presentation, and thank you very much for listening.
Thank you very much, Zail, for the presentation. It was very, very comprehensive and useful. I think the participants appreciated the content. If you are okay, I'm going to share the screen with Slido. There are some